This is NBC Nightly News, Monday, October 15th. Reported by John Chancellor.
Good evening. The war in the Middle East widened dangerously today to involve both the United States and the Soviet Union. The United States disclosed that it has already started to airlift military equipment to Israel to make up for Israeli battle losses and to offset massive Soviet military help to Egypt and Syria. In Moscow, the Soviet Union, which began resupplying the Arabs at least a week ago, said it is determined to assist in every way the Arab war to drive Israel out of the occupied Arab lands. And tonight, we learned from NBC News correspondent John Cochran that Pentagon sources say American pilots are flying both planes and other equipment directly into Israel.
American pilots are flying fighter planes into Israel for Israeli pilots to use in combat. Also, Americans are flying cargo planes loaded with missiles, ammunition, electronic gear, and even tanks. Government officials do not believe U.S. pilots are in great jeopardy. The officials point out that Israel controls the skies in the area over the Mediterranean close to Israel. But when asked what happens if an American military pilot is shot down, a high U.S. official said, well, the crisis just escalates. Government sources say ships from the U.S. 6th Fleet are prepared for air-sea rescue efforts should any American be shot down at sea. The U.S. is also supplying Israel in other ways. Today, at the Naval Air Base near Norfolk, an unmarked Israeli ship was loaded with 4 fighter planes and some 250-pound bombs. The planes were A-4 Skyhawks. These are the planes that Israel has lost the most of. The U.S. is also supplying the faster, more deadly F-4 Phantom jets. Government sources say eventually the U.S. should be able to replace most, if not all, of the Phantom jets so far lost by Israel. John Cochran, NBC News, Washington.
State Department spokesman Robert McCloskey said he was not going to indulge in name-calling and talking about the Soviet airlift. But the Nixon administration is angry at the Russians and has told them so privately. Officials here say the administration is still trying to avoid a public confrontation because that could set back the recent improvement in relations and might also interfere later with diplomatic efforts to work out a long-range Mideast settlement once the fighting is over. The State Department emphasized that the resupplying of Israel was designed to maintain the balance of power in the area, a diplomatic phrase which means Israeli military superiority, especially in the air. So there's no doubt that Israel is now getting some Phantom jets to replace its sizable losses. The decision to resupply was made after it became obvious that the Russians were increasing their resupply of the Arabs, including sending some technicians back to Syria. The State Department announcement is likely to provoke threats from some Arab states to cut off oil supplies to this country. But President Nixon made it clear at a White House ceremony for Medal of Honor winners that the United States would continue supporting Israel. And he did it by pointing out past examples of American help for Arab nations.
If I were to describe our policy, I would say that it is like the policy that we followed in 1958 when Lebanon was involved. It is like the policy we followed in 1970 when Jordan was involved. The policy of the United States in the Mideast, very simply stated, is this. We stand for the right of every nation in the Mideast to maintain its independence and security. We want this fighting to end. We want the fighting to end on a basis where we can build a lasting peace.
White House officials said afterward that the president did not mean to imply that the United States might send troops to the area, as it did to Lebanon in 1958. But for the first time during the war, the emphasis here is now on helping Israel militarily rather than diplomatically. Richard Valeriani, NBC News at the State Department.
The reason for the speed up in military deliveries, both by the United States and the Soviet Union, is that losses on both sides in the war have been sizable. According to authoritative sources, Israel has lost 1/4 of its air force, Syria half of its planes, Egypt 1/5. Israel has lost 1/3 of its tanks, Syria more than half, Egypt 1/10. In other news tonight, we'll have satellite reports on the fighting in the Middle East. Former Vice President Agnew is in the news tonight. We'll have a film report on a fire which destroyed 1/4 of a New England town. And we'll take note of increasing reports of strange, unexplained things going on up in the sky.